Okay, welcome back. We're going to jump right into it. Let's fix the geometry around these elbows and knees, okay? And this should be old hat to you, as now we're just going to inset this real quick, and then we're going to smooth it out with the smooth tool. And then, similarly to what we did with the kneecaps on the body, we're going to do to the elbows. And then we'll also do on the suit as well. And then we have to take these 4 verts and then merge at last. And then take these 4 verts and merge at last. And then again, we've created triangles. And we want to dissolve these edges. So we'll right click, dissolve edges. Same thing we did when we connected our toes to the feet. And when we connected our fingers to the wrist. Okay. And then let's do it one more time. We'll pull that out, smooth that out, bring it out a little bit to make the bulge in the elbow. And then same thing, we're going to grab these 4 vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4, merge at last. And then same thing down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, merge at last. And then again, we're going to take our triangles and dissolve these faces to create happy little quads. Now, so now we have proper geometry. When we rig this, our elbow is going to be able to bend properly. What we did with the elbow, let's do with the knee. Okay. And again, this should be old hat to you by now. We're going to select all these faces. We'll inset to bring these in, and then we'll smooth them out with the smooth tool. And then you can bring it out to pop it out. That's no big deal. And then again, take the 4 verts on the corners and merge them at last. And then select the edges and dissolve them. So now we take 2 triangles and we've dissolved it into 1 quad. And then we can do that one more time. We're just going to do the exact same thing one more time. Okay. And all this is doing is creating additional geometry. So when the knee bends, the form will be able to move around the fulcrum of that lever, right? If we think of our arms and our knees as levers, now we have a proper set of geometry to move with and around, okay? And now all I'm doing right here is I've shown the spacesuit, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing that I did with the elbow on the elbow of the spacesuit. Okay, we did it on the elbow of the body, and now we're going to do the exact same thing on the elbow of the spacesuit. Capiche? Anyway, you've merged these types of verts before on 2 elbows, 2 knees, 2 feet, 2 hands. So it's something of which it may be said you are familiar. Excuse me, with which it may be said you are familiar. Okay, now let's sculpt. All right, and this is going to be great. So kick over into sculpt mode, and if you've never sculpted before, you're going to have a blast. Okay, first, before we do anything, you got to apply the modifiers for your object, and then I want you to add a multi-resolution modifier and bump the subdivide up several times, 3 or 4 times, okay? And then all we're going to do is we're going to draw the folds on our suit, okay? We're essentially going to sculpt them. And all I'm doing right here is just changing the color of my sculpt. You're more than welcome to. It's just a taste thing. So if you look in the top left corner of your screen, you can see the Draw tab is selected. So now anywhere I draw on my model, it's going to add clay as if I've drawn it on my model. And what's great about sculpting a spacesuit first, as the first thing you sculpt, is that you don't have to worry about detail, right? You're not trying to make a Disney princess. You're not trying to, sculpt the crown jewels. This thing can look rough, okay? So you're free to fail. You're free just to learn the mechanics of sculpting and just to learn, how to get comfortable sculpting things. And you can see right there, I actually went in to my model. And if you hit Control and Draw, it does the opposite. So when you draw, you're adding clay strips, when you hit Control Draw, you're removing them. You're like indenting into the model, okay? And then if you hit Shift Draw, that kind of softens them out. It kind of blurs it out a little bit, okay? And all we're doing is drawing, some of the creases and the folds of this spacesuit, right? So it's that big, bulky, tough, all-weather material that spacesuits are kind of, it's got to be able to stand up to negative 100-degree freezing temperatures and, also fire. It's got to be fireproof. It's got to be ice-proof. This is that suit. So, and again, why, just what makes this valuable is that if you've never sculpted before, this is just the one you want to start with, because the detail doesn't matter, right? I don't know if you saw what I did right there. I switched to clay strips. So we had draw selected. Now we have clay strips selected. And I love clay strips. It's like you're actually adding a strip of clay to your model, and it really gives it this loose, stroke-like, it really looks artsy, right? So this is where you can, if you love to sketch, if you love to draft, which I've always loved those things, you're really going to like this particular brush, because it just really gives it that hand-drawn look, right? And that's what we're going for. I don't want this thing to be clean or pristine. I want it to look, a little rough around the edges, right? Like he's a space cowboy who's just been traveling the universe, gripping and ripping, So now I'm just gonna dabble a little bit onto the gloves. And okay, so right there, I clearly hit Control and Draw. And so now instead of adding the clay strips to the model, it essentially like carves the clay strips away from the model. And here I'm just drawing. So you can really be painterly. And I'm also using a stylus, okay? This is where having a stylus just helps. And you don't need a fancy pants stylus. And you're going to see a lot of geometry right there. That's from the multi-resolution modifier. Don't be afraid of that. We're using the multi-res modifier intentionally, and we're essentially going to map this high resolution geometry onto our low resolution polygon structure that we had before. But that's coming down the road. For now, just get comfortable feeling what it's like to draw sculpt in Blender, especially if you've never sculpted in Blender before. This is for you, right? Like it doesn't have to look like a cat or a buffalo or Queen Elizabeth, right? It's just some folds and some bends and some ridge lines of a big, puffy spacesuit that has been put through the ringer, right? Like he's gone on some adventures before and got a little bit dirty, okay? And that's okay, right? And all I'm doing is drawing. Just drawing. It's just like you're sketching. And every time you lift up the pen or the stylus and put it back down, you can add a new piece of clay. And if you want to change the size of your brush, just hit F. And then you'll have the option to scale out. That's what I'm doing right there. Or hit F and you can scale it in, and it'll make a very fine, small, it'll make a much smaller brush. So depending on the type of stroke that you want, that's essentially what F is for. Okay. You can make this as detailed, as in-depth, or not at all, as you want. My suggestion is to play. Like, really treat this with a sense of play, right? Don't worry about it has to be right, or, oh, it's not looking right. Like, come at this with a spirit of play. Because that's when, well, honestly, it's really one of the only times you can be creative, If you're worried about how to make it the right way, that like shuts down creativity, right? Which we don't really know where creativity comes from. But we know that wherever it comes from, play and being in the spirit of play is one of the things that opens the door. And I just switched over to the smooth brush right there. We're not going to use every brush, and neither will you. You're going to find your favorites, and that's cool. And smooth, obviously, just smooth stuff out. And then I switch back to the draw, and now I'm drawing it. So, take this and make it your own, play with it, but way more importantly, get comfortable starting to sculpt in Blender. I can't stress this enough. If you're like, I'm going to start sculpting in Blender and I'm going to make, a real life model of a gorgeous actor, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's like, make the game winnable. Baby steps, right? Crawl before you walk. This is like a level 1 sculpt, and you don't need to start with a level 50 sculpt. It's like, work your way up to that. Okay. Just add a little more detail around the boots. I really like these space boots. They almost have like a pirate boot feel to them, and that's kind of where he's a spaceman. I mean, what is a space cowboy if not a pirate of the cosmos? Space cowboys are pirates a few centuries too late. All right, finishing up here. And in the next one, we're going to build out the helmet. So everybody save your work, and we'll see you in the next one.